What's up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to be back home.
Yeah. So Ian, we talked about it the last couple of shows. Ian went to the North Texas game, and then he also went to the Texas Oklahoma game the following day. So just give us a little insight what happened in those games in your travels.
Yeah, so obviously I'll start with the USF North Texas game. Ironically, for us as USF fans, between the two, the most important game in terms of emotional stability. But it was a very fun game. It was cool to see the sellout of the first time in that stadium in North Texas. Also, it was especially funny because my wife actually went to North Texas for a year, so that was pretty. She only was like 5 minutes away from the stadium from where she lived, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, the game was really heart attack inducing in that first half. Not gonna lie, I've never been through a game where I was that stressed in one half and that relaxed in the end of the second half, because I thought we were lucky to be tied, to be honest, especially on that, when the guy muffed the punt and then we scored on that. I was like, dude, that's just luck, because we should be down 21-14. We were turning the ball over, but they made the halftime adjustments. They turned it on and they just blew past North Texas. And that was a huge statement win for USF. That was one of their toughest games coming up. Now Memphis will be the big one moving forward. But that was a tough environment. Crowd was rabid, and they were able to come back a pretty not so great first half and just show who they really were in the second half. The Oklahoma-Texas game was everything and more that I hoped for. I mean, it's one of the best rivalries and traditions in all of college football. We toured around the fair before the game. That was really cool. Got to see Big Tex, got pictures of there, got see around the Cotton Bowl. It was really cool to see. We went in early to see the stadium filled up, one side orange, one side red, and then it just got louder and louder. We were on the Texas side, and it was amazing to just hear that many Texas fans shout "OU sucks" for like 3 hours straight. I was like, this is what college football is all about. Just like two sides that just absolutely hate each other at a neutral site. It was perfect. The game was, it was a really fun game. These games usually are. It's either a blowout or a close game, but Texas's defense not allowing OU even into the red zone is absolutely insane. I did predict that Mateer, even if he was back, I don't know if he was going to be at 100%. And I'm not saying it was the thumb or anything like that, but you could tell the Texas defense kind of read the book on him. And after that first half, they clamped down on him. And it was obviously those plays that made it easier for Texas to score and kind of put some distance on Oklahoma. The offense had its moments, but either be a holding call or, some bad bubble screen or something that would put them back. But overall, absolutely fantastic game in a fantastic place. Nothing more I could say. It was a great trip. I would love to do it again. But yeah, a huge shout out to the Dallas area. Just a great place in general.
Yeah, I mean that's such an awesome trip to be able to do both of those games, considering how much was on the line for both USF and North Texas on Friday, and essentially how much was on the line for Oklahoma. But let's get into it. So this is the Week 8 preview show. So the first game I have on Friday is the Miami-Louisville game. Now, I'm not going to pick Louisville in this game just because I'm like learning my lesson. Until Miami loses a game, I'm not going to pick against them, especially these ACC games, because they're just a lot better than most of these ACC teams. But I will say, in my research of Louisville, in that Virginia game, they looked like the better team for most of that game, and Virginia just really got two defensive scores to make that game what it was, because Louisville was really controlling that game for the most part, especially because they were moving the ball quite well. I will say, from what I saw in the research, Louisville has been pretty good at getting after the quarterback. They had 2 sacks against Pitt, 2 sacks against Virginia, and they also had 6 sacks against James Madison. But the problem was they allowed 5 sacks against Virginia, and Virginia does not have nearly the talent that Miami has on defense. So expect Miami to get after the quarterback there in the Louisville game. And it is a Friday night game, so it's like it's a different variable here. Miami almost lost that Friday night game last year against Va Tech. They should have. Like that was, that call at the end of the game decided who won or not, and it should have probably gone to Va Tech's way, even though it probably wasn't a touchdown. The call on the field should have been not confirmed but upheld. No, for this game, I like Miller Moss to have a good game. He's been playing well all year. Again, the thing though with Miller Moss, like it was at USC, is turnovers, interceptions and sack fumbles. He's got to limit those to have any chance in this game. I don't know if they're going to be able to force many turnovers from Miami on their side. Beck still, I'm not sold on completely. So there's a chance maybe there's something there, but we'll see. I think Louisville's defense is good enough to keep them in the game, and their offense is solid enough to like put up points. But again, it comes down to Miller Moss. If Miller Moss is not safe with the ball, if he's not able to limit the turnovers, then I feel like Miami should win this game, and maybe even by like 10 points, 2 scores at least. So I'm going to go with Miami winning like 28-20. What do you got?
Yeah, and I thought about this too, is that the Friday game in Miami, and I thought about the scare they had last year. And I got a feeling something like that might happen. I don't think Louisville will go down easy. I like Louisville. First of all, in the ACC, Miami clearly has the number 1 defense, and Louisville is in there at, I think, the 3rd or 4th rank. But the other thing is, too, is that the passing defense of Louisville is 8th in the country overall in passing yards. And normally that's, they've been relying on the, kind of West Coast style with Carson Beck and then maybe hitting the big shot plays. So they're going to have to rely on the run game. Now, Miami is also top 5 in the ACC in the run. So I think that's going to be what the difference is that I think Miami can successfully run, maybe not as efficiently as they had in other games, but I got a feeling they're going to be able to get more yards on the ground than maybe Louisville will on this Miami defense. And I feel like the Miami defense, especially with Moss, that he will be able to, is a bit turnover prone. I do really like Isaac Brown, the running back for Louisville, but I think the Miami defense is it's just better than Louisville's defense compared to the offense. So I'm going to take the Hurricanes winning. Bit of a close one, but I'll go with a 31-24 win.
Okay, moving on to the next game. LSU Vanderbilt. I'm not the biggest fan of this LSU team. Like they've been underwhelming is probably the best way to describe them. Yes, they did beat South Carolina last week, and they looked good on defense, especially against Sellers, who, didn't have his best game. But they, outside of that game, I don't know. They didn't look great against Ole Miss. They got lucky against Florida because DJ Lagway kept turning the ball over. If that doesn't happen, they might lose that game. And then they, beat a Clemson team that has looked mediocre all year. I don't really see that much out of this LSU team that really like amazes me. Nussmeier has been underwhelming. He's put up okay stats, but we were expecting a little more out of him this year, and he's been very just ho hum. I don't know. I like Pavia a lot in this game. This is probably Vanderbilt's biggest home game they've had in probably since that Alabama home game 7-8 years ago when they were undefeated going into it. Like, this game is huge because, like, this is a huge, like, moment for Vanderbilt. If they can win a game like this at home, they really let the SEC know that they're for real. Because, like, yeah, they lost to Alabama, but Alabama looks like it's the best team in the SEC right now. So, like, losing to the best team is not the worst thing in the world. But if they can show that they're in that, like, second tier, like with teams like LSU and Oklahoma right now, if they can show that they can contend with those teams, I mean, that goes a long way. I mean, Clark Lee is a really great coach. Like, I'm amazed what he's done. And a lot of it has to do with Pavia because he's been able to, make this offense go. And I think, with this game, I'm going to go with Vanderbilt. And, like, it's not really that I'm just underwhelmed by LSU. And I'm just more of like, I feel like Vanderbilt's got some magic here, and I think they're going to be able to pull it together. I like Vanderbilt to win probably like a, I don't know, 27-24 game and maybe hit a field goal late to win it. What do you got, Ian?
I feel like with LSU, the only way they got to keep in this one, it's funny because LSU is like 12th in the SEC in total offense, and Vanderbilt is 5th in total offense efficiency. So it's a real contrast of styles. It is insane, though, that we live in a time where Vandy is favored over LSU in any game. Like, that's pretty wild. Anyways, I feel like in this game, I agree that LSU's got to, like, offensively just has to play better. They are, like, way too stuck in the mud. It's too predictable, and there's not as many big plays going on compared to Vanderbilt. And the thing that does give hope is that Vandy's defense is very middle of the pack. They're only two spots. They're 2 spots worse from the rankings that I saw from South Carolina. But South Carolina was still able to hold LSU to 20 points. I feel, man, LSU does have the 3rd best defense in the SEC, and Vandy, like against teams like Bama, kind of struggled in, really being that consistent. But yeah, I kind of agree. I think Vandy somehow gets it done. I like Vanderbilt. I did do the history look up. Obviously, these teams don't play each other as much, but the last time Vandy did beat LSU was in 1990, and that was the Edmonton Oilers' last Stanley Cup with Mark Messier as captain, and the Cincinnati Reds won their last World Series. So that's how long it's been. And I think the Commodores can get it done.
It was almost a Wayne Gretzky trivia.
It was almost, but he was in LA at that point. That was after the great trade. Yeah. But I'm going to take Vandy winning this one. I'm going to go with let's do like a 28-24 win.
All right. Next one we got is Georgia Tech, Duke. And I'm going to keep buying Georgia Tech until they prove me wrong because they've been hot all year. They looked good the last couple of weeks. Wake Forest was a struggle. They barely won that game, but they looked better against Vatek, and Vatek was obviously terrible. No, I like Georgia Tech a ton in this game. I feel like they're going to be able to run the ball. And, Mensa stands out because obviously the kid's super talented, and they've been moving the ball well, but they've played some mediocre opponents. They played Syracuse and I think Stanford.
They beat Cal.
Or Cal, sorry, not Stanford, but Cal. And then, if you look at their 2 losses, which I think those are like more poignant for what their schedule is like the rest of it, because Tulane and Illinois are probably the 2 best teams they've played all year, and they didn't look good in those games. And, Mensa struggled. Ball security is an issue with him. So in those games, he had some, turnovers. In the games that they won the last 2 weeks, he didn't turn the ball over that much. And so, and not only that, Duke was able to force 7 turnovers the last 2 games. So, in this game, Georgia Tech is really good at ball security outside of that Colorado game. So it's going to be hard for Duke to force turnovers when Georgia Tech just doesn't do that. I like Haynes King a ton. The kid is not the most spectacular arm talent. He just is one of those kids that makes plays, is super tough, and does what he's told, and it doesn't seem to complain, because I never hear anything about complaints. He just keeps slamming his head against 5 defenders and gets right up and does it again, and they're winning. And this team, they're not getting a lot of notoriety because their schedule is not that difficult. So they don't have a ton of sexy names that they're playing against. So they really just have to at this point win these games, and maybe even win convincingly, to really have a shot at the playoff. I mean, if they get to the ACC championship game, they have a realistic shot of going, which at this point, they don't have a tough schedule, so they should be very close to a shoo-in to get there. I mean, they could lose a game or 2 here or there, but they should beat Syracuse next week. They've got some easy ones after that, and it's just, I don't know. I have faith in Georgia Tech, and I'm going to keep picking them until they don't. So I'm going to say Georgia Tech wins 31 to 20. What do you got, Ian?
The other thing is that I don't like Duke's defense in this game. They're near the bottom in rushing defense, and obviously with a guy like Haynes King, that's going to be a problem with how consistently they run the ball and use him. I feel like the offense for Duke has been pretty impressive, but I like Georgia Tech getting those stops. Now, defensively against the run, they have been a bit of a problem, but against the pass, they are top 5. So it's real hot and cold on defense. And clearly, Duke, if they want to stay in this game, they're going to have to find a way to run the ball and then maybe run play action plays. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of buying what Georgia Tech is selling more. I like their offense against this defense better, so I'm going to take the Jackets winning. I'll go with 30 to 20 win for Tech.
Okay, moving on to Washington, Michigan. Damon Williams is a guy that has been putting up huge numbers and has gotten zero attention for some reason. Washington is not ranked, and I know there was a bunch of tweets about it and people in an uproar about it. The fact that they're 5-1 and not ranked. Their only loss coming against number 1 Ohio State, so it is deserved. They do deserve to be ranked, but this game will prove it if they deserve it or not. And Michigan is a good enough team to prove if they are. Michigan's defense is decent enough. They've held them in almost every game that they've been in. The 2 losses that they had, the one to Oklahoma and the one to USC, they struggled offensively. Underwood struggled immensely against Oklahoma, and then he had a better game against USC, but it obviously wasn't enough because USC, with a walk-on running back, was able to run right through them. And Jaden Mayava had a great game, and King Miller, the walk-on, had a huge game. But Washington, I don't know. They struggled at times in some of these games. They were down 20-0 to Maryland, and then had to come back, and they went on a 24-0 run to win that game. They allowed the Rutgers quarterback to throw for 386 yards and Rutgers was 8 for 15 on conversion. So I don't know what to make of this UW team. I think there is talent there, and their offense is fun. Like Damon Williams is fun to watch. Like he can put up a ton of yardage, but their defense is not like stellar. So it's gonna be a game because it's in the big house. Like I feel like Michigan can win this game, but I'm also like, this is, I don't know if Washington is really going to like prove themselves. This is going to be the game because their schedule gets a little bit harder after this, and this is going to be like one of the games that they can stand out. Like they can get to like 9-3. This will be one of those games that can get to that. So I think it means more for Washington. I think right now with Michigan, they have a little bit of an easy schedule the rest of the way outside of Ohio State. So they should be able to get 8 wins. But I think it means more for Washington in this game, just like proving themselves. And I'm going to say Washington wins probably 26 to 20. What do you got, Ian?
The kind of deciding point in this game is how both teams have been playing this year. Obviously, Washington's been more balanced, but clearly running the offense through the pass. And when looking at the defense, Michigan is like in the 60 area in NCAA rankings against the pass. So very troubling, but they are in the top 20 against the run. However, Washington's defense is 6th in the whole country against the run, which is clearly Michigan's bread and butter. I feel like with that, Washington defense is more prepared to face that Michigan offense than Michigan's defense is against that Washington offense, especially with how they were carved up last week against USC. Michigan will at least be at home. It's in the big house. Obviously, you got 100,000 people. Hopefully, it'll rattle the Huskies. But I'm not sold on the offense, and especially with how bad the defense is. They're now in prove-it-to-me mode because, in games where they have played equal or better competition, Oklahoma and USC, Michigan hasn't passed the test. So they're going to have to prove it against Washington now. But I think the Huskies pull it off. I think they can go into the big house and steal a win here. Especially with how well they've played against the run, I think they get enough stops or at least make it 3rd and long against Michigan. So I'm going to go with let's do like 27-19 type win for the Huskies.
Okay, next one, Oklahoma, South Carolina. I want to hear your thoughts first before I give mine.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Seeing them in person, the offense just it wasn't good. There's no other way to put it. It was, even with Mateer, they just couldn't generate anything. They had some big plays and some big runs, but I don't know if it's an injury with Mateer or something like that if it's not healed. But at least against that Texas defense, they were pretty smothered. The good news is that South Carolina obviously defensively hasn't been too impressive. So they have a chance to kind of bounce back here. This could be a get-right game for Oklahoma. And the thing is, too, Oklahoma's defense still played pretty good. And they made sure it wasn't until like the 3rd and 4th quarter where they got worn down by Texas that
punt return.
That it was kind of going, it was more breaking instead of bending at that point. But I like Oklahoma in this one. I think, they get the bounce back, they get the get right game. I know it's in, Columbia, but I think Oklahoma can bounce back here. I'm going to go with a 28-14 win for the Sooners.
Yeah, I think it all depends on John Mateer's health. Like if he's getting better from this surgery, because he had 3 interceptions in that game against Texas, and like that's not him. Like the rest of the year he was nothing like that. So like
one of them wasn't his fault. It was one of them tip drill ones, but still.
Yeah, but still he wasn't his normal self. Like you can tell. Like it was different. Like even you said, like the offense was not that impressive. And it is when he is clicking. Like when he's on full cylinder, it looked like that against Michigan, and it looked good against Auburn. So like he is capable of, orchestrating that offense when he's healthy. I think that's the key to this game. Like, if Mateer is healthy, I believe Oklahoma should easily win this game. But if he struggles again and if his hand is an issue, then they may lose this game. But I know that's wishy-washy, but it really is dependent on his injury. I'm going to go with Mateer doing better because it maybe is like a week later. He had some time to heal. Maybe he didn't practice as much, so he can like rest it a little bit. I'm going to say Oklahoma wins like 24 to like 17. Okay. Texas A&M, Arkansas. Okay. I'm calling it on this one. And the reason I'm calling it on this one is because last week when Arkansas went up against Tennessee, they put up 496 yards. The difference in the game was very limited. They were 8 of 13 on conversions. Tennessee was 2 of 9 on conversions. I felt like Arkansas was right there in that game. And, I feel like Arkansas can probably score some points here in this game. I like Taylon Green a lot. I've been a huge fan of his since last year against basically that Oklahoma State game. And he does well. I mean, he's a very athletic quarterback and a very proficient passer. I'm not really sold on Marcel Reed with Texas A&M. I mean, he's okay. Their defense is definitely their strong suit. Texas A&M. They held Florida to let's see, where is it? 1 of 10 on conversions, and they held Mississippi State to 1 of 10 on conversions. They were not as good against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was 9 of 15. So I don't know. I feel like Arkansas can move the ball here. I feel like there were points in the Florida game where Florida was moving the ball. Obviously, they were out-coached, Florida, because Billy Napier is incompetent. But, Texas A&M, I feel like this game will be it's going to be like a 30 to 28 game. And Arkansas maybe has the ball last and scores a late touchdown to go ahead. And then they win 30 to 28. That's what I got. What do you got?
Yeah, and for me, though, is that Arkansas's defense it's the worst in the SEC. And they're going to have to rely on a shootout to win this game. But I feel like with A&M, they're going to play keep away. They're very good at that. They did that against Notre Dame, and I feel like they can do that again. They know Arkansas's one strength has been the offense. But I feel like if you're just bleeding the clock for 7-8 minutes, which they can do, A&M's got Arkansas right where they want them. I feel like that's what A&M's going to do, and I think they can at will because Arkansas's defense just hasn't been that impressive. So I'm going to give the nod to the Aggies. I think they just, like I said, I think they just play keep away. Maybe not as high scoring, but I don't see Arkansas having the ball enough to score, and I don't see the defense really getting that many stops to keep them in the game. So I'm going to go A&M winning. I'm going to go with a 30 to, well, let's do a 31-17 win. This is, though, because A&M is number 4. Everybody in College Station is just begging them, don't screw it up again.
Yeah, but I just feel because last year they had a tough schedule at the end, and I feel like A&M's got a tough schedule at the end here too. So I don't know. Maybe they might overlook this game, and this might be a trap game as well.
Yeah.
So it could just be Arkansas with Petrino taking advantage of the situation here. Okay, moving on to Ole Miss and Georgia. Game days at this game. What are your thoughts, Ian?
This is, I feel like, a revenge game. It has to be for Georgia. And after that, they got really lucky against against Auburn, clearly. Whether call or not, whether the fumble, they weren't playing good until this third quarter. So they were lucky that, Auburn just wasn't able to put up more points than they did. This game, though, man, it's going to be interesting because Ole Miss, they had that scare. They had a real scare against Washington State. And I feel like, I don't know if there's going to be any residual for that, but I know going into Athens, that might, make it very difficult for Ole Miss. They have the number 2 offense in the SEC. Yeah, sure. Ole Miss survives. They get away. They find a way to pull out a win in Athens. I don't know how. I don't know why. Georgia usually gets lucky against these teams, but I think Ole Miss somehow does it again. I feel like I just don't see Auburn's offense as not as great as Ole Miss has looked. The defense was able to step up when it did the last couple of games, especially against LSU and Washington State. The only time they've allowed more than like 25 points was against Arkansas. So I think, Ole Miss survives. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong in this one, but I'm going to go with the Rebels here. I'll go with a close one. I'll go like a 27-21 win for Ole Miss.
Yeah, and like I looked at the 2 games that Georgia had recently, the Alabama game and the Auburn game, and they looked mediocre. Like, the Auburn game, like you said, they got lucky. Like that game might have been over if they're down 17-0 at half. And completely switches, fumble, they get the ball, and then they go down the field and hit a field goal, make it a 10-3 game. So it was a 1-score game. It goes from a 3-score game to a 1-score game in the matter of like 2 minutes. That's huge difference there in that game. So, and then Georgia did not look that good against Alabama. They really had 3 explosive plays that whole game. And then the rest of it, their success rate was limited because they really didn't do anything outside of that. And, it is good to get explosives. Like it's a huge thing. You want to get big plays because it gets huge chunks of yard, changes the field position, gets you getting closer to scoring, everything. But like, if your success rate is super low, you're not going to have a great chance of winning a game. So, Georgia, I don't know. Like their run offense looked better in that Alabama game, but it did not look great at all against Auburn. And I feel like Ole Miss's defense is good enough here to be able to make a difference here. I know you picked Ole Miss. I just feel like it's in Athens. This is a hard game to pick. It really is. Like, because both of these teams are very solid. There's a ton of talent on both sides. I like Lane Kiffin better as a play caller than I like Kirby Smart as a defensive mind right now. I feel like Lane is really tuned into his team and, just at the peak of his game, especially with Chambliss. Like Chambliss, a guy that was a D2 player a year ago and now is like on the verge of potentially going to New York for the Heisman. I'm leaning towards Georgia. I'm going to say Georgia. I'm going to say Georgia wins like 24-20. It's a super close game. And I'm going to say like Ole Miss has the ball last and like just can't score at the end. Like has a chance to win, but just whatever reason, if like a 4-down stop or a turnover late, but Georgia gets the win. Okay. Moving on to SMU Clemson. This is a loser go home game.
Yeah.
Which is funny because this is a rematch of the ACC championship game last year. Jennings still looks good. He's put up decent numbers. They had solid wins, but they were against bad opponents, Stanford and Syracuse. And Clemson, they beat 2 bad opponents as well, BC and UNC. So they had both these guys had get-right games against bad teams. Now they're going up against better opponents. It's in Clemson. I don't know. I mean, this Clemson team is hard to read because every good team that they've played, they've struggled. and SMU played better against Baylor than they did against TCU, but they lost to both of those teams. I don't know. I feel like SMU has more momentum right now. Like Clemson is still like riding on fumes, and I think SMU gets him here. I think Jennings does enough in this game to win this game. I know that Clemson's defense is talented. They just haven't put up a great like performance yet. And maybe they do that in this game, but I still feel like Jennings is good enough to really overcome that. So I'm going to say SMU wins like 31 to like 27. What do you got?
I think in this game, the one thing to note is that SMU's overall defense for either from the Baylor or TCU game has been kind of bloated. You know, they are like in the 100 range in overall defense. The thing to note too is, especially with the teams they play, I noticed with SMU with their losses in games they play, Baylor, who had Sawyer Robinson, and TCU, who were really good quarterbacks, that defense got carved up pretty good. But with Syracuse, obviously Angeli's out, and then Stanford, not, you know, all-American quarterbacks, they're able to settle in and limit them both to like 10 or I think it was 18 points. Cade Klubnik, what you will say about him, I still think he is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a Heisman quarterback anymore, but he's still a good quarterback. I feel like he will be able to find the creases in the cover 2 or cover 3 defense that SMU is going to be playing and be able to get those first downs when it's needed. On the other end, it's the same with Clemson, is whenever they do play a good team, they have kind of face planted. So I think this is a matter of who has the ball last. I'm going to go with Clemson only on the expectation that they will have the ball last, and I like Klubnik in that kind of situation a bit better. I feel like, too, with the running game can kind of be more complimentary, but I think it'll be a close one, and this is another one where I could see SMU winning easily, but if I had to take a pick, I'm going to take the Tigers, especially if, you know, it's in Death Valley. I'll go with a let's do like 27-24 Clemson.
Okay, moving on to Texas Tech, Arizona State. It's weird with this team because, this whole game, because there's so many injuries in this game. Skylar Gill-Howard is not going to be in the game, the big-time defender for Texas Tech. But then Baron Morton might play. He had an ankle issue in the game against Kansas. And then it seems likely that Sam Leavitt for Arizona State is going to play. So depending on these injuries, because Baron Morton has been out a couple of games. The Utah game, he missed like half the game. The Kansas game, he was missed half of it. Sam Leavitt was out for the game last week against Utah. So it depends on that, because largely Arizona State is not as good without Sam Leavitt, because Jeff Sims is just not that good of a quarterback. But I will say that Texas Tech, even if regardless, Baron Morton is great, but Hammond has come in and played well. He ran the ball a ton last week against Kansas and had more yards against Utah, but in both of those games, he played really well and was basically the difference in the game. Cameron Dickey for Texas Tech had 263 yards against Kansas. So this Texas Tech team just basically does whatever they want on offense. They can throw the ball a ton. They can run the ball a ton. They basically do whatever they want. And I feel like that's going to be the case in this Arizona State game. Arizona State's defense has been somewhat all right, but they got smoked last week against Utah, largely because they couldn't really do anything on offense. So their defense was out there the entire time. I feel like, Texas Tech is going to put up huge numbers in this game. I think Sam Leavitt will keep it somewhat respectable, but I feel like Texas Tech is going to win by like 14 at least. So I'm going to say Texas Tech winning like 38-24. What do you got?
And the other thing to note too is that even like I mentioned all year, as much as we have been, admired over, Texas Tech's impressive offense, they still have the number one defense in the Big 12, and it has showed. Obviously, putting, a team like Kansas to 10 points or 17 points was really impressive because that, a really good offense. Same thing with Utah with Dampier. And that same Utah team put up 42 on Arizona State. So I think with sorry, my dog. I feel like in this one, I don't see Texas Tech's defense giving up that many points compared to what their offense can do. Even if, Morton isn't 100% or healthy, they have the running game to lean on. Comparatively speaking, Arizona State, while, Brown in the running game has been the bread and butter, without Levitt, it's not as effective. So I'm going to go with Tech winning. I think they pull away. It might be close early, but I think the Red Raiders Nico, come here. I think the Red Raiders run away with it. I'm going to go with a 38-20 win. 38-21 win.
Nice. Okay. Moving on to I'm not even going to talk about this one long, and I didn't even do any research on this one because at this point, the reports that came out today were that Billy Napier is going to be let go after the game on Sunday. So, what is there to say? Like, Florida is good enough to win this game. They're talented enough, but at the same time, their coaching is going to hamstring them. And, they're not going to be able to really even if they win, it's going to be like a, 28-24 game. And, it's just sad because Billy Napier is so incompetent. He proved it last week against Texas A&M, with those third downs and just, 1 of 10 on third down. I'm sorry. And he did that against Miami as well. And it's like, you cannot win games if you cannot convert third downs. And the offense is it's just a shell of itself. Like they had what, 17 against Texas A&M, they had 16 against USF, they had 7 against Miami, they had 10 against LSU. Like, I'm sorry, and I know we've talked about this, and it seems like the writing is on the wall. It seems like this is it. Like, this is the end of the road. And, I'm surprised they just didn't fire him after the A&M game. I don't know what made them decide that they needed to keep him. But either way, it seems like this is it after this game. And you know what? Good. I'd like to see, them promote Ron Roberts to head coach and give Russ Callaway a shot at running this offense. And then watch when they go up against Georgia, watch them score like 40 points, and I've seen other people talk about it on Twitter. It's like, it seems to be like that. You look at it with UCLA, it's fully possible. There is talent here. There's talent at UCLA. There's a reason why people get frustrated, why teams are losing games that they shouldn't. And, Billy Napier is oblivious to this. He didn't hire an OC in the offseason when he clearly should have. And he just thought, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep calling plays. I'm going to, bury myself in the sand and ignore all the, all the talk and all the chatter. Well, you know what? You buried yourself. Your grave is dug. Goodbye. And that just is what it is. And it's no hard feelings. Like, the guy seems like a really nice guy and he's a great guy, but it's a results orientated business. It is a, success, leads you forward type business. And if you're not having success on the field, then I'm sorry, then you got to go, regardless of how good your recruiting is, how good your culture is. If you're not having success, there's no need to keep you. Your thoughts?
I've been saying it for 3 years now that it's time, and hopefully this is the second, booster meeting that we've had that we thought was the end of it. And then I'm going to say this, watch them win. Just watch them win. Watch them play the best game they've had all year. because of course it happens now when it's all but said and done. But I agree, like, especially with like guys like Franklin being fired and all these other coaches, like there isn't an excuse. I don't care what there is. Yes, he's better at recruiting than Mullen. Sure, there's been less problems with the, outside of the program than there have been with other coaches, but you're not winning. You are the worst coach since Doug Dickey in Florida history, and they have had some bad ones in that time. It's like you said, it's a result-oriented business. Every one of their rivals have been blowing past it. Well, Florida State's doing a good job lagging behind, but every one of the big three rivals have found a way to blow past Florida in this time. So regardless of what happens, if this really is his last game, I wanted to note too, the last time, and I only remember this because I remember almost breaking my TV as a 10-year-old. The last time Mississippi State came to Gainesville was Dan Mullen's second year, and they won 10-7. That was infuriating, and that's when I knew we weren't that good anymore. But
10-7, they won 10-7.
Mississippi State won 10-7 in 2010. Myers last year. That was the last time Mississippi State played in the Swamp.
Oh yes, I do remember that game. I was living in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
oh,
it was the
wow.
most ever, and as 10-year-old Ian was going to jump through the roof.
I thought you were talking about when Dan Mullen came back to Florida.
No, Dan Mullen,
head coach.
State.
I get you now. Yes, at Mississippi State. Yeah, I totally remember that game because that was like a sloppy, crappy game, and that was Urban, or was that?
No, that was Meyer. That was Urban Meyer.
Wow.
Yeah. So, anyways, regardless, I say all this, and I still say watch them win. Florida, sure. Florida wins. They're undefeated in these uniforms. Sure. They win in the Swamp in a completely worthless victory, and maybe Napier goes out on a high note and gets the pink slip. I don't know. Freaking.
Do they carry him off Ron Zook style?
And Muschamp, yeah. Sure. And then they like they do in the Super Bowl where they put him down to get the trophy. They put him down in front of Strickland and he gets the pink slip. 27-20 Florida, sure. Because of course you win now to really annoy me.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
watch Mississippi State blow them out.
I don't think it matters the result. I think that's because even what is it, at the news conference the other day, people were like looking at his body language and saying how defeated he seemed, and like maybe he already knows and they just haven't announced it yet, which is ridiculous. Like if they really are back channels letting it be known, just fire him, just get rid of him. I don't see what the point of, letting him survive after the Texas A&M loss to then let him coach against Mississippi State. What does it matter? Just get rid of him. This is it. He's done. Clearly at 2-4, he's done. He has the same record as UCLA at this point, and UCLA has fired their coach. So clearly something needs to happen. All right. Moving on to what do we have? Oregon, Rutgers. I feel like it's going to be a get right game for Oregon. They struggled in that Indiana game. Dante Moore had 2 picks, and I don't know. It's not the end of the world because Indiana is one of the best teams in the country. So Oregon losing that game, yes, is at home, but still, it's one of those things. If you're playing tough teams, you're bound to lose 1 or 2 here now in this different day and age of college football. They still have a lot to play for. Their schedule the rest of the way is not crazy difficult because they have played most of their tough games already, and outside of USC, And, I don't know. This Oregon team, they may not get to the Big 12 or Big 10 championship, but they still have a really good shot at an at-large playoff bid, which I really feel like at this point they'd have to like completely implode the rest of the year because after this they got Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, the USC game, and then Washington. So I think at least one loss is probably in the cards for these next 6 games. But, really outside of Washington and USC, it's really not that tough. Like they should go through these next 4 relatively easy. Rutgers, their quarterback, I don't know how to say his name, so I'm not even going to pronounce it. I'm not going to make a fool of myself, but he had a really good game against Washington. They put up 493 yards. The quarterback put up close to 400 himself. But they allowed Washington to put up 579. They got a 3-game losing streak right now, Rutgers. It really feels like it's a get-right game for Oregon. I'm going to say Oregon wins like 31 to 17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and especially because Rutgers has the worst defense. They are at the bottom of the Big Ten in total overall defense. So I don't see them being able to stop Oregon as consistently. And Oregon, they went through the gauntlet of having to play Penn State when there was still hope there, and then Indiana. So now you get the get-right game with Rutgers. I think they right the ship. So I'm going to take the Ducks winning. I'll go with a 38 to 17 win.
All right. Next game we've got is Washington State, Virginia. We're going to do this one quick. I feel like Washington State proved themselves last week against Ole Miss. They stayed in that game. I felt like largely because Ole Miss on that first drive was down the field and should have scored, and they didn't. There was a turnover on downs. And if they score in that game, it changes the complexity completely. So Washington State was in that game, but I like Virginia in this one. I feel like their offense is, doing enough here in these games. Their defense is not great, but did enough in the game against Louisville with those 2 scores to really turn the tide there. I feel like Virginia is the better team here. I feel like they can lose this game because this is a non-conference game and it won't hurt them in the grand scheme of things. But if they have a playoff spot, they need to win this game. So I feel like Virginia is going to win this game. They've got something to prove here. I'm going to say Virginia wins 28 to 20. What do you got, Ian?
I think this game will be close, but I don't like the offensive ability that Washington State has to keep up with Virginia. I think the defense can stop them, but I like Virginia as not as great as they've been on, defense the past couple. I mean, obviously they went into overtime against Louisville and then, of course, the shootout with Florida State. But I think Washington State can put up some points, but I like Virginia's, offense more against this Washington defense. And I just don't see Washington State's offense keeping up. So I'm going to go with a 34-21 win for the Cavs.
Okay, next game we got is Maryland, UCLA. Man, these guys left for dead and now 2-game win streak, dominated Michigan State. That game was never close. And I just like this offense a ton. Jerry Neuheisel is just I don't know. He's just like a magician, completely figured out what to do for this team, what to make this team go. I saw a breakdown of some of the run schemes he was calling up, and the kid's just very smart at this stuff. And his dad was a coach for a very long time at several big programs. This kid knows what he's doing. He wanted a shot and he wants to coach at UCLA. He doesn't really want to go anywhere else. So I don't know what they do in the future with him, but he is definitely proving his worth. He's definitely proving that he loves this school. UCLA, man, they're just turning it on right now. And the defense is playing better too as well, which that was a huge issue because it was like, Nico was not able to really do much, and then the defense was struggling. And now it's like both are playing complementary football, and they're like, getting off the field. Nico is, not turning the ball over. They're converting third downs. They're getting down the field, scoring touchdowns. Maryland, in the Nebraska game, they picked off Rayola 3 times, once for a pick six. But Nebraska was still good enough to pull out 10 late points in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I mean, Malik Washington, I don't know a ton about him because we haven't really highlighted their games at all, but he looks capable. Um, you know, like I said, Washington had to really fight back to win that game. So Maryland is capable of scoring points, but I feel like UCLA is just like turning the corner and like really proving themselves. And this is another game to potentially get them into a bowl game. So they need this one here to really like get to those 6 wins. So I think they get it here. I think UCLA wins. I'm going to say UCLA wins like 38 to like 24. What do you got?
I agree because I feel like if the defense is starting to get it together and the offense is able to produce, they can jump out on Maryland. And it's all about starting on time and starting early. And that's something UCLA is finally doing. They are not playing catch up. They are actually playing on schedule. They are scoring points in the first and second quarters, especially those first couple of drives. And now they don't have to play catch up. And the defense is getting those stops. So I think UCLA's Frankenstein run continues. And I'm going to go with the Bruins winning. Again, I think it'll be close, similar to you, but I'm going to go with let's do 28-23 Bruins.
Okay, next game we got is Tennessee, Alabama. What are your thoughts? I want to hear what you're thinking.
I said at the very beginning of the year, this was Bama's must win. And I get, you could have easily said.
I do remember you saying that. I remember that, yeah.
And I remember, and also too, I know a lot of people were saying, well, Georgia. And I went, that's not as big of a deal, especially to Kalen DeBoer, as this game, because you cannot go 2 years in a row losing to Tennessee. And especially
in Tuscaloosa.
Especially in Tuscaloosa, exactly. So there's a lot of so that's the thing. Pressure's a very funny thing, and how teams deal with it and all that. So clearly, the pressure's on Bama, not as much as Tennessee. Now, Tennessee's not totally they're not dead. They clearly, even if they don't win this game, they still have a lot in front of them, and they can do what they did last year and kind of backdoor into one of those wild card spots. But it's going to really come down to the defense of both sides. And with that being said, they were in a dogfight with Missouri, and they were able to pull out that win. Missouri was playing very, very close with them, and Tennessee similarly was in a dogfight with Arkansas. But they were also Tennessee's kind of been playing with fire, is what I've been thinking. And Bama, especially with Jam Miller coming back and with Ty Simpson going absolutely crazy now, pointing out, really living up to his 5-star caliber. I think in this game, I think Alabama gets it, they get it done. Tennessee maybe puts a scare in them, but I think Alabama will find a way to just kind of put some distance here. Doing the homework too with this game, obviously it was a one-sided rivalry ever since the turn of the millennium, but Tennessee has not won in Tuscaloosa since 2001.
Whew.
Yep.
That's almost 25 years. Wow.
Yep. Colorado Avalanche and Ray Bork won their Stanley Cup, and the Diamondbacks won their only World Series.
Against who?
The New York Yankees.
Yep. Yeah. No, yeah. This Tennessee team like puts up a ton of yards and a ton of points. Like they're like very explosive. I don't feel like they're going to be able to do that against Alabama. I think they'll get some explosive plays, but not to the extent that they normally get. And I think in this game, Alabama has a good enough offense that they're going to be able to score on Tennessee's defense, which has not done that well this year. They've been kind of a sieve and they've been very leaky. I expect Ty Simpson to have another great game. You know, he put up, a ton of yards the last couple of weeks, and he just looks great. Like the kid, like you said, 5-star, and like he, for whatever reason, didn't beat out Jalen Milroe, last 2 years, but man, he stayed with the program, stayed there, stayed the course, and he got rewarded. And he's clearly QB1 in the country right now. And, he's the front runner for the Heisman, and he has a lot to play for. You know, that one loss to Florida State, it's such a mirage. It's such like fool's gold because it's like that was the first game of the year. And like, again with Gus Malzahn, his offense is like can like fool people and like make some like different things, and it does it like once every couple of years. He'll have these games where he like beats teams that he shouldn't, but then for the most part, Gus Malzahn just is terrible the rest of the time, and it's proven out. Like they've been terrible the rest of the year, and but Bama, they kind of put that behind them. They've just went on a tear. They beat Georgia on the road. They beat Missouri on the road. They beat Vanderbilt at home. Like they're right now. They've got to be top 5. I don't know what their rank is officially right now, but they're playing on that high level with the rest of the country, and I think they deserve to be there. Okay, moving on. Well, I didn't give my prediction. I'm going to say Alabama wins it. I'm going to say like Alabama wins like 34 to like 21. Okay, moving on to let's see. We've got USC Notre Dame. Now, with those injuries at running back for USC, you've got both Sanders and Jordan out. Sanders is out for the year, and Wayman Jordan is out for like several weeks. So now they're going to have to rely on King Miller, and there's another running back as well. I can't remember his name, but King Miller had a great game. He's a walk-on, and it is what it is at this point. It's you got to get up there and perform. Like there's nothing else. They don't really have any other options. But the rest of the offense looks great. Maava is right there with the other potential Heisman players. He's having a tremendous year. He had like 265 yards against Michigan and 2 TDs. Ja'Kai Lemon is just wide receiver 1. The kid's a stud. He makes plays every week, especially last week against Michigan. He had that touchdown in like double coverage, and he just muscled his way to get that ball. They looked great last week against Michigan. They were the better team the whole way through. This Notre Dame team, though, has been on a tear ever since they lost to Miami and Texas A&M to start the season. They've just beaten the living crap out of everyone they've played. None of these games have been close. They've really just kind of toyed with teams, even when it wasn't necessarily a blowout. They just never were really like afraid of losing, like because none of these games were actually on the verge of being close games. And CJ Carr, man, the kid, a redshirt freshman who started his first game on the road in Miami in a close game, and I don't know, people were kind of like writing him off. The kid's just put up like 300-yard games ever since. Like he just is doing amazingly out there. And the two-headed monster with Price and Love, they can score a ton of points, this Notre Dame offense. I will say Notre Dame's defense has looked, not as great this year as last year. Primarily that A&M game, they kind of got tore up, and the Purdue game too. But I feel like they've gotten better the last couple of weeks. The opponents were not as great, so it helped them. to get right. This game, though, I feel like USC is going to win this one. I know it's in South Bend and Notre Dame is favored, but I feel like USC is just going to win this one. I like their offense a ton. I think their defense looked stout against Michigan, better than it had been in previous weeks. That game against Illinois, they really couldn't get off the field on third downs, and they really did so against Michigan here. So I feel like USC is going to get the win. I'm going to say USC wins like maybe like a close game, like a 24-21 game, and like USC hits a field goal late to win it. What do you got?
You want to talk about streaks too? We just got done talking about Tennessee and Bama. USC hasn't won in South Bend since 2011, so they're on a really bad. Yeah, they've been on a really bad cold streak ever since anytime they go to Indiana to play Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I think in this one I agree. Losing the running backs really hurt, but Notre Dame's pass defense has been like in the 100 range. They've been giving up almost 250 yards a game in the air, and obviously for Iowa, that's just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable with USC's passing game and them making the right decision there. Obviously, turnovers are going to be a key part in this game. If Notre Dame can force more turnovers and win the field position game, I think Notre Dame can win this because that ground attack is all they need. But the other thing to note too is like Notre Dame, yes, obviously with the schedule, the teams they have played that were like out and out like really good were Miami and A&M, and they lost both of those games. But since then, obviously games like Purdue, Boise State, Arkansas, they beat NC State last week. I'm not saying those are bad teams, but
they're not good.
They're not great. And I feel like USC's win against Michigan was a really good bounce back after the loss to Illinois. So I feel like if they could do that against that defense, they should be able to do that against this defense too, especially with a worse passing defense. So I'm going to take the Trojans winning this one. They break the schneid. So I'm going to go with same with you. Watch it be something like, 1 yard line. Mayava sneaks it and the running back pushes them in and they win 28-24.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to what do I got? FAU USF. All right. Homecoming. Gotta win this game. Gotta win this game big too. Like, FAU is not on USF's level, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I don't think it will. I think USF, especially after the last 2 weeks where they destroyed Charlotte and they destroyed North Texas, they're on a mission this year. Beating Florida, beating Boise State. They're trying to prove something, and I feel like this is just another game in that. And if we get to the next week game against Memphis, we'll talk about that next week, but just focus on this game, have fun. It's a night game, which we don't get many at Raymond James for whatever reason. And it's also homecoming, like I said. So it's imperative. It's on national TV. I think it's on ESPNU. And, it's imperative that they win this game. Like they don't have to like put up 70 points, whatever. It is what it is. They just need to really just win this game for the most part and get to next week, because the Memphis game is like, there's so much riding on that game. And you cannot let this be a trap game. You cannot have a letdown after a monster win last week against North Texas on the road, sold out stadium, all that. To then, I hope that the stadium is full. I hope that people are coming to this game. I hope we get at least like 40,000. If we can get 40,000 to this game, it'll be a really nice environment, and we can really have the boys just go off tomorrow. And or Saturday. And I hope so, because, this is just, the next step. You start to beat these teams in the way, and then you set up games like you have with Memphis. But what are your thoughts, Ian?
This game especially is again, as us USF fans, we might have like some syndrome with it, but it is very like trap game feel because you're coming off an emotional win against North Texas. You're coming back home for homecoming, and you have the expectation that you should win, but Florida Atlantic's been a sticky team, especially because they have the best passing offense in the American right now. Veltkamp leads in passing yards and touchdowns so far, although to note, he has only one more touchdown pass than Byron Brown, regardless. Yeah, again, FAU does have, they blew him out the first time they met in the American. So there's history there. And then they had the whole kerfuffle last year when, God forbid you shake a hand and that's it. Anyways, I feel like in this game, once again, someone with UCLA, and what I was talking about that was worrying me, limit turnovers, start on time, USF's going to be fine. If they can just do that, keep the ball in their hands, which has been a real problem lately, and they've been getting away with, they're going to be okay. I think USF gets it done. Like I said, if they have a good first half, if they play a good full 4 quarters, they're going to win easy, and they just got to make sure it stays in their hands. And I trust the defense getting on the FAU offense too. So I think USF wins. It might be one of those games too, like the typical they pull away late. So I'm going to take USF winning a 38-21 game.
Yeah, I didn't give my score, but I feel like USF, they should pull it out, and I'm going to say like a 41-24 game. Okay, moving on to last 2 games. We got Utah, BYU, the Holy War. I want to hear your thoughts on this first, Ian.
I freaking love this rivalry. It's one of my favorites. Some dude just got arrested from BYU for making threats, and I'm like, man, you can't. I mean, obviously, I'm not condemning him. I'm just saying, like, something about this game just brings out, something between these two teams, and it's just an awesome sight. For those, like I've always said with these type of games, even if it's not like a Michigan, Ohio State, Auburn, Alabama, these two teams are at like the near top of like how much they hate each other, and it's a beautiful sight, honestly. This game, obviously, whenever these two teams play, there's some drama, there's some schmaz or something like that goes on. Both of these teams are ranked together. I think this is the first time in a couple of years that's happened. Usually one side has dominated the other. I feel like in this game, it's very interesting with the storylines because BYU's defense is number 2 in the Big 12. Meanwhile, Utah is like top 5 in the Big 12 in total offense. It's at BYU. It's at Provo. God, you don't know with these games because the Holy War always turns on its head. I'm going to take Utah on this one. I feel more comfortable with Dampierre and the running game that they have, especially with a wide receiver like Davis. I think they can get it done. The key will be, can Utah's defense stop the kind of RPO attack that BYU is going to be giving them? Because they have Martin at running back. Obviously, Bachmeier can run the ball. And with, Roberts at wide receiver, it's a 3-headed monster on who you can really target. But I like Utah settling down, getting the wins. BYU was kind of skating by. They barely beat Colorado. They barely, they had to pull away late against West Virginia. And then, they won in overtime against Arizona. Meanwhile, injury or not, Utah just blew out Arizona State and West Virginia. And their only loss is to Texas Tech. So even though BYU is still undefeated, I feel like they're skating on thin ice, and I think Utah gives them their first loss. Watch there be some controversy or something like that, and watch them punch some kid in the neck. It always happens in these games. So
wasn't it last year was like a weird game with like a lot going on too?
Yeah, they called back a penalty, and the Utah AD said, "I was excited to join the Big 12. I'm not sure how excited I am now." That's what rivalries do to you, man. It's awesome. So,
okay. Did you give your prediction? I didn't hear the last.
I'll take the Utes winning a 27-24 win.
Like, I know Dampier runs the system very well, and they run the ball extremely well. Like, that's just their bread and butter. They're not that adept at passing the ball, but I feel like they'll be able to make some plays here in this game. BYU's defense is tough, and they'll be able to like keep most of the explosives in check. I like BYU though to be able to score some points. I like Bear Bachmeier a ton. I think this kid is just got something here. Like, I thought so last year with Retzlaff, but then he's gone. But it's really the team. Like, it's not just Bear Bachmeier. It's like the whole team. Like, the coach just has them playing extremely well. Like, they're all well. They do well at their jobs. They're very detailed. They don't make many mistakes. And they also make a lot of plays on special teams, which they did last year. And they make some plays on defense as well, like scores. So I feel like BYU can win this game. It's in Provo, right?
Yeah, it's in Provo.
Yeah. So like I feel like BYU should win this game, being the home team. I think it's going to be close. Like you got 27-24. I got like, I don't know. Last year was like 21 to something, like 21-20.
It was like 22-21.
Yeah, something like that. So I think it's going to be something like that. I'm going to go with like a 24-22 score just to be weird and say like BYU hits a field goal late to win it. It's just one of those weird games. It's a rivalry game, and these two obviously hate each other immensely. So, but I just like Bachmeier. I think and like you said, Roberts is a stud wide receiver and makes a ton of plays. And I feel like he'll make enough plays in the passing game that'll be the difference. Okay, G5 game of the week. Go ahead, G5 Gibson.
Yeah, and depending on how USF Memphis do this weekend, this might be the G5 game of the year because UNLV's path is clear. Beat Boise State, win the Mountain West, you're in. Because UNLV's schedule after this, it's not that tough. I mean, obviously you got Boise State, and then they got to play, New Mexico, Colorado State, and I think they play like Hawaii, Nevada, and I think Utah State is the other ones in the Mountain West. Those are all games UNLV should be favored for. But now you got to go to Boise. UNLV has not beaten Boise State since 1976. The Habs were in the middle of their 5-cup dynasty at that point. And they've never beaten Boise State in Boise. They've never won an Albertson Field. So with this game, man, I don't like history, favoring against history. And especially because Boise State's defense has been they've lost games. They lost to Notre Dame, but they held App State. They, beat, I think they beat New Mexico last week. Both teams were in a shootout with Air Force. But then again, UNLV was in a shootout with like almost every other team this week. Boise State's defense has been better. I think Boise State gets the upset. I honestly think history favors them, and I'm going to take the Broncos winning. I'm going to say Boise State wins in a close one. The defense gets enough stops on UNLV, and I'm going to go Broncos winning a 30-24 win.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Mullen has really like not done anything for this defense, and they just don't get stops. They're basically in shootouts every week. So I like Boise State to make enough plays on offense. And like you said, defensively, they should be able to get enough stops. And so I'm going to say like Boise State wins like 27-24 in a real close one. And maybe UNLV's got the ball last and Boise makes a stop. Okay. Let's do Heisman's. We haven't done it all year. And we used to do it. Like that used to be the thing. We like did the Heisman rankings. I kind of like went away from it. I'm kind of glad because I feel like it kind of like, I don't know, it like cheapens it because it's like whatever, because it changes so much. But it's a good way to like, we did it at the beginning of the year. Let's do it halfway, and then we'll give our thoughts when it comes time to. So give me your top three.
So my top three right now, if I were to make a pick, Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, and I would have to probably put like, honestly, like if it was my choice, Haynes King from Georgia Tech would be my top 3 Heisman guys.
Love that.
Those, yeah, because again, I also look at like if you take them away from the team, how well they do. You take Haynes King away from the Jackets. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not the same team.
They're not the
same.
My top 3, they're definitely not.
My top 3 are Ty Simpson, Haynes King, and Fernando Mendoza. Not necessarily in any order, but those would be my top 3. I did want to make a quick shout out to guys that just missed have it here. Mekhi Lemon, as you mentioned, and Eric McAllister, wide receiver from TCU. Those would be the other ones I would give like an honorable mention to.
Yeah, those guys are amazing. I love McAllister. I thought he's done well all year, but I've been talking about all year and even last year. Yeah. Like the kid is just amazing. Yeah, I love those picks. Like I love Ty Simpson. I think he's done extremely well. Like from first game to like now, he is he is just like expanded his game. He's so like efficient. I'm amazed. Like to see him go from that FSU loss to what he is now, it is just amazing. And then Mendoza, kid is just, very talented, with a very great combination of a great coach and great coordinators. And, Surratt is a great wide receiver, and they're just doing things in Indiana. They're like, I say they are potentially right now close to being one of the favorites in the clubhouse for, the national title. And then, the other one was Haynes King. I love Haynes King. Like the kid is just, he's nails, man. The kid is just, he just puts his head through a wall and keeps on going, and he just makes plays. Like that's what he does. He just makes plays every game. I think you definitely have to consider Carson Beck. Like I know I don't love him, but the numbers are there, and they're the number 2 or number 1 team depending on what rankings or whatever. So like he's up there. Julian Sand is putting up numbers. Jeremiah Smith still putting up some numbers. So it's kind of wide open right now. Like it really is. Like it's not one of those years where you've had one guy the whole year and it's that guy. It's kind of at this point, and I did see some people talk about it. We need to probably put this as an award after the season. Like there need to be, I kind of don't understand why we're doing it in the season. Like, let's just do it after. Let's make it like, we can have award show. We can have a whole deal, like whatever. What does it matter? Like, why do we have to do it like when they've got playoff stuff to worry about? Like, kind of like takes them away from getting ready for CFP games. So whatever, but a lot of talented guys. Is there anyone else you have like stand out that you think that so far this year that like stands out, like offense, defense, whatever, special team?
I mean, like obviously guys like Dante Moore, Blake Horvath at Navy, always a underrated pick. Those would be the other guys I would probably like give a nod to.
What about like just defensively? Like, is there anyone you see defensively that stands out?
I mean, I might be biased, but I mean, Jalen Shor's like one of the best linebackers in the country.
Yeah,
he gets picks, gets tackles, gets in the backfield. That would be, I would say in terms of defense, he's one of the most like, wrecking ball players on any team, regardless of what team he's on. So I would say a guy like Jalen Shore would be one of my standout picks.
What about your thoughts on Ruben Bain?
Ruben Bain, I really like him. He was, he's one of the, just absolute like monsters. He's a typical like Miami guy, like a Warren Sapp type guy. I really like him on the D line and on the edge too. He's just an absolute monster there. The scary thing is how fast he is. He's that big and that fast.
Super fast.
He's a quarterback's worst nightmare.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we go?
No, just hopefully USF doesn't put another heart attack on me like they did at North Texas.
Yeah, and I hope it's like a better performance than the Charlotte game where it was like kind of whatever for like the whole game. Okay, so that is the show. Reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles. I might put something up at some point to like make make it worthwhile for me putting up the money for the website. And then find us at our socials. Just type in Hater Radio, comes right up. Ian, what's your social again?
At Twitter, it's at G5Gibson, and at Instagram and YouTube, it's at G_Gator_G.
All right, that's where you find us. Enjoy these games. We'll talk to you on Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Take care, y'all. Have a good weekend.